All today we are going to do Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which is published in 1813, and the title was first taken as First Impression, but it is a romance novel of manner by Jane Austen, published in 1813. The story starts with the emotional development of the protagonist, Elizabeth Bennet, who learns the error of making hasty judgment and comes to appreciate the differences between the superficial and the essential. The opening lines of the novel is, "It is truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of life." Theme of this novel is marriages, class, wealth, etc. So the characters are, first I will take the female characters and then the male characters. So the female characters are Elizabeth Bennet, that is the heroine; Jane, who is elder sister of Elizabeth Bennet; Charlotte Lucas, who is best friend of Elizabeth; and Mrs. Bennet, that is mom of Elizabeth Bennet; and the other character lists are Caroline Bingley, who is the younger sister of Mr. Bingley, and she likes Darcy. Then Louise Huret, who is elder sister of Mr. Bingley; Lydia, Catherine, Mary, who are the sister of Elizabeth. And the male characters are Darcy, the hero, who is a proud and rich man; Bingley, who is lover of Jane and is also a very rich man; Mr. Collins, who is the cousin of Mr. Bennet and he proposed Elizabeth, but later he married to Charlotte Lucas, friend of Elizabeth. Then the fifth is Mr. Bennet, that is father of Elizabeth. Fifth is Wickham, who is a villain. He is a villain and he eloped later with Lydia. So before starting it all, you have to understand that what is the theme of Jane Austen. Jane Austen keeps a theme as marriages and the issues of class and wealth, the role of class, wealth in marriages, and she tries to portray the society of 17th century and what is through the mirror of marriages happened there. So some of our novels that are finished, the list of novels that are finished and unfinished are here. Finished novels are Sense and Sensibility, published in 1811; Pride and Prejudice, 1813; Mansfield Park, 1814; Emma, 1815; and Persuasion and Northanger Abbey, 1818, published posthumously after her death, that is after her death. And unfinished novels are the Watson and Sandation. So these are the novels that are published after her is unfinished, and the novel that are published after her death is Persuasion and Northanger Abbey. Please remember this. So she takes characters who are very close to her heart, and this novel deals with the theme of marriage, class, and wealth. So there is a problem she is discussing among social issue she is putting up here is English property law, which says that any person who dies without a heir, without a boy, after his death all his property will go to his nephew or brother, but not to the family if he is having only the daughters. So Mrs. Bennet has 5 daughters and a big problem that none of them are married, and they lives in Longbourn village in Hertfordshire. So there is a big family. Her problem is that none of her daughters are married, and they want to settle 1 or 2 daughters before the death of Mr. Bingley, so that the family could get their wealth, financial support. There is a law in England named English property law that says that if anybody dies with only daughter all his property will go automatically to his brothers or nephew. So they want to get married before the death of Mr. Bennet. There came a very young, handsome and rich eligible bachelor in the town, Mr. Bingley. He was a good man, but his friend Mr. Darcy is a proud and controlling friend. So Mr. Bingley is a good man, he is a most eligible bachelor, but Mr. Darcy was a controlling man, and he has a prejudice that all the girls from middle class and wants to marry rich person, and that is the case really, because at that time people only search for the good suitors, good eligible bachelors who can support them in marriage through their wealth. So the purpose that there was lack of knowledge, and the purpose of all the girls is to find somebody who get attracted towards their beauty and will be a very great suitor to them, and they will marry and they will get a very they will enjoy the property of them. So that is the big purpose for everybody, every female to settle their daughters, and every girl to settle with a wealthy man. There came a handsome man, and the friend is a controlling friend. Mr. Darcy doesn't want anyone to come near to his friend and to him to cheat them. He do not like any woman of middle class who takes advantage of his friend's good nature and assets. So he restrained Mr. Bingley to like Jane. So meanwhile, Charles Bingley lived at Netherfield Park. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet were talking one day, and Mrs. Bennet asked Mr. Bennet to invite this Mr. Bingley, but he is a very Charles Bingley, who is a rich man, but he is a very rich man, so they cannot invite him like this. So one day Mr. Bennet met him in the street, and they have some hi hello types thing. They have some quite a small introduction, and after that Mrs. Bennet and her daughters meet Mr. Bingley at ball dance. Mr. Bingley gave a party to all of the people in Netherfield Park to have a small introduction. So that was the style, and that was the fashion of that time, that if you want to meet people in your neighborhood, you have to give some party. He invited them at a ball dance. Darcy said, so Mr. Bingley get attracted towards Jane. I think I have discussed with the characters. Jane and Elizabeth and Charlotte, all are the sisters. There are 5 sisters. So Mr. Darcy get attracted towards Jane. So Mrs. Bennet was feeling this, that he is getting attracted. So she asked her to please dance with Mr. Bingley, and Mr. Bingley asked Janet to dance with him, and they are dancing, and Mrs. Bennet was very happy. She was a silly woman, a quite silly woman, not so mature. She is very talkative and very loud type of woman. So she is very excited, and she asked Mr. Darcy also. She wants to settle Darcy with Elizabeth. So she asked Darcy to dance with Elizabeth. Darcy said that that I don't like her. She is tolerable but not beautiful. These are the words of Darcy, who said that she is tolerable but not beautiful to dance. Elizabeth Bennet, about Elizabeth Bennet. Bingley's sister. Then after that the party gets over, and everybody were talking about the good nature of Mr. Charles Bingley, who was very friendly and this and that. Then Elizabeth told Jane that I don't find this man Darcy very good because he is very arrogant. But Jane said that no, I like Mr. Bingley, and he is a good suitor. So Bingley's sister sees that Mr. Bingley is getting attracted towards him. So she invited Jane, who is extraordinarily beautiful. As seen his brother's interest in her, she invited her. As she came to meet Bingley, she fell ill. Who fell ill? Miss Jane fell ill. Jane Bennet. Elizabeth went to Netherfield Park. They get a letter from Jane that please come to seek me, because she was ill and she cannot return back. So Elizabeth Bennet went to Netherfield Park, where Darcy and Bingley are living. So Miss Caroline Bingley hates Elizabeth. Miss Caroline Bingley is the younger sister of Mr. Bingley, and she hates Elizabeth because she likes Darcy. But Darcy start liking Elizabeth, seeing her beautiful eyes. This time Darcy start liking Elizabeth, seeing her beautiful eyes. Mr. Collins, Mr. Collins, who is the cousin of Bennet, propose Elizabeth, but Elizabeth refused. He came to Mr. Bennet and said that while you will be, if you die, nobody will take care of your daughters and wife. So I propose one of your daughter, Jane, and we will marry, and then I can support them. So, but he came to know that Jane is getting engaged with Bingley. So he proposed Elizabeth, but father doesn't like. Father was not wanting Elizabeth to say yes to Mr. Collins, but really she is a very mature girl. She said no to Mr. Collins, and that was a relief to father. Now they met Mr. Wickham, and then Collins gone. Collins was cousin of Mr. Bennet. So Mr. Wickham, they met Mr. Wickham, who was a young handsome soldier, who tells Elizabeth that he hated Darcy because she is not that how Darcy hated him. He said that Darcy hated me and Darcy is hating you because we are not rich, and Darcy is a person who is very arrogant and doesn't like people who are not having any wealth or class, and prevents him from getting a good job. She told Elizabeth that Darcy is a very bad man and a very arrogant man, and he hates me because I am not rich, and he prevents me from getting a very good job. Elizabeth started hating Darcy because the first impression of Darcy was that he is an arrogant person. He told her that she is just ordinary, tolerable, but not beautiful to dance, and this and that. And in the second meeting also, she is not finding him very much friendly. Here Darcy prevents his friend Mr. Charles Bingley to marry any of the daughter of Bennet, as he thinks that their romance is not serious. Bingley and Darcy went to London, leaves Netherfield Park. Now what happened? Mr. Darcy is a very controlling friend, and he understood that Bingley is just having infatuation towards this girl Elizabeth. So he asked Mr. Bingley to leave for London, and he leaves Netherfield Park and leaves for London. Elizabeth started hiding. She came to know about it from uncle of Darcy. Now she started hating him more. Then one day she went, because he and Jane was very upset, and he is the reason for their separation. So he hated Darcy more. Elizabeth started hating him more. She went to Charlotte Lucas, and this Collins went to propose Charlotte Lucas, who was 27 years old. So Charlotte Lucas find it a very good proposal, because after 27 years, who will marry her? And she is getting a good suitor and a wealthy man. She said yes, and they both of them married. So one day this Elizabeth went to Charlotte Lucas, where she met Darcy again. Charlotte Lucas was living with her husband, and who lives near the house of Mr. Darcy. So she met Darcy again. Darcy started liking Elizabeth more here, but she refused, because she is angry on Darcy because he separated Jane and Bingley. So Darcy proposed Elizabeth in the way that you are not so rich and not of my class, but still I am proposing you. So Elizabeth is finding he proposed her with a pride, and she is having prejudice that he is a bad man, because prejudice means preoccupied schemas, preoccupied ideas. So she thinks that he is a bad man, and he hated us. He hates people with low class or people with less money. So she said, no, I don't like you, and I don't want to marry you, because you are the only reason who has given so much pain to my sister, and I will not marry any man who has separated my sister and his lover and her lover. So Darcy wrote a letter and accepted his fault, and he bragged that yes, I am the reason behind their separation. But because he has done all this because he thinks that they are not serious in the love. So she told Elizabeth that I thought that she is not serious. That's why I have done all that. But now if you are saying that they are serious, so I will think about it. Then all of a sudden, Mr. Bennet admires Elizabeth more. Because Mr. Bennet thinks that my daughter is a very much mature girl. The two sisters Lydia and Catherine, like when they were in here, their two sisters Lydia and Kitty went to a camp where she met Wickham. They went to Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, their uncle and auntie. She got to live there with uncle and aunt, and there she finds that Wickham was there. He was in some camp near that village. So, and she has fallen in love with Wickham and eloped means she ran away. There Williams as villain asked for rupees to keep Lydia and marry her. Now Wickham is taking advantage of Lydia, writes a letter to Mr. And Mrs. Bennet that I want some dowry or some rupees to keep Lydia and marry her. Here Mr. Lucas Charlotte told Elizabeth that Darcy is a good man and he bore the expense of her marriage with Mr. Collins, whereas he is the one who prevents his young sister of 15 years eloping with Wickham. Now Charlotte told Elizabeth that he is the one who has prevent his young sister of 15 years eloping with Wickham in greed of money and Darcy's property. So Wickham is against Darcy. Moreover, it is Darcy who bear the expense of. Now news came and Elizabeth told all this to Mr. Darcy, because now she is having a good impression because of Charlotte, who told that he is a very helping man, and the lady servant at house also told that he is a very good man. He used to help everybody. So she told him, and Darcy intervened, and Darcy has given the expense of Lydia's marriage and saves the respect of Bennet's family. Now she started liking Elizabeth, started liking Darcy, because it is very obvious that somebody who has saved the respect of the family is the best suitor. Both wanted to marry each other, but she has to convince Mr. Bennet, who thinks that she is marrying for wealth. Now this Elizabeth went to father and tell him that what and how Darcy has done for all the families and family, and how he is helping him, and then she convinces father that I am not marrying for wealth, I am doing a good judgment, and I am marrying a good man. It's because of the wealth. It's not because of the wealth like Janet. It's not because of the compulsion like I am not getting any suitor like Mr. Collins and Charlotte Lucas marriage. It's not like Lydia's and Wickham's marriage, that they have to marry in compulsion of some respect or savings respect of the families. It's like that I really love him and he deserves all my love, and how she has done bad judgment about him, and both married each other and all got pair, and it was a happy ending. Important line of this novel is that I could easily forgive his pride if he had not mortified mine. Elizabeth in chapter 5. These are the important lines. Second, vanity and pride are different things, though the words are often used synonymously. These lines are told by Mary Bennet in chapter 4, who is a bookworm, who is a bookish girl. And happiness or marriage is entirely matter of chance. Charlotte Lucas chapter 6. In 9 cases out of 10, a woman had better show more effective. These are the lines told by Mrs. Charlotte Lucas. And the novel is all about fun. Novel is all about wrong judgment. The novel is all about class, the role of class, wealth in marriages, and why the marriages were there. She tries to put up some social problem also, that girls are marrying because of the wealth. Girls are marrying because of the class, and not because of love or out of affection or out of good judgment. So you can see this is an ironic title also. You can understand, you can see it from irony that first when she met Darcy, Elizabeth met Darcy, she finds him very arrogant and bad man, and very arrogant man and very proud person. But after that she has developed more, and it has been swayed by Mr. Wickham also that he is a very bad man and he hates poor people and person who are from lower class and not rich like him, not classy like him. So after that, when she started seeing him from her own eyes, then she start making good judgment, and after that she marries Mr. Darcy out of love, not out of wealth or because of the wealth or class. Or so she has done a good judgment, and all the Pride and the Prejudice has been resolved and dissolved in the end. Thank you very much. I hope it is understood.